So, talking about pretty faces, Richa, what do you have to say to that? A pretty face, a beautiful woman, does she come in the way of her own development in other spheres?
Yes. Hello. Hi, everybody. I was waiting for a chance to speak at a panel like this, so I'm going to say 3 very revolutionary, radical ideas that I believe in because this house has so many men. Okay? 1, I firmly believe that if women were not responsible for making children, we would be obsolete. 2, do you think the world is in a good shape right now? Do you think so? Does
Yes,
anybody think so?
I think
Yes,
it's getting
no?
better.
Okay, well, I'm talking about war and famine and food distribution.
It's better
The
than last
world-
century. It's getting better every decade.
Okay, can I finish?
I'm
The
optimistic.
leadership of the world primarily has been in the hands of men. Give us a chance. We bring life into the world. We know the value of life. We are not prone to war so easily. Give us a chance. And 3, women to get to to get to the same stage as men in career or in any other field have to work twice as hard. And I think all women here would agree with me on that.
I don't agree about the asking for it.
Yeah.
I believe
like,
that
no!
real power has to be taken and not given.
Yes,
So then who are you asking?
Can I
I'm-
just add something?
I'm not
here?
asking. I'm saying it's happening. And we
Huh.
might as well brace for it. Because if we are going to live in the illusion that this country is going to become a superpower or that the wars will come to an end, and barring a few countries, more or less the laws are in favor of patriarchy, and it's so conditioned because feminism is not a biological thing. Just because I'm a woman, I'm not a feminist. Just because
That's
you're
true.
a man,
It's
you are
not
not
that-
patriarchal,
Imtiaz,
right?
Absolutely.
have your good looks come in the way of your career?
I would like to say, first of
My
all,
good looks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I just say something?
Is
Oh,
your-
it's the first
has
time he
your-
heard that, didn't he?
Is your vision?
It's a question just keeps getting asked to women, you know. It's like,
No, but
are your
I
looks
want-
coming in the way of being taken seriously? I keep,
so now
yes, for
I
the
want
longest
to-
time.
I want to say something that I'm not ashamed to admit. For the longest time, for most of the industry, I wasn't even good looking. I was only good looking for my mom and dad. Because I was little Savli for a Punjabi, you know, not a model-esque kind of figure. So thank you for the compliment. And no.
No, I'm your fan. I think you're definitely one of the best actors we have.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
I go to watch your films, and ever since I saw you first as Dolly,
Yes.
I could never forget.
Can I say something here?
Yes.
It has-
Just one
Yes.
thing.
Monica, yes.
No, I
please.
just wanted to add that, you know, I think it's really not about asking based on your gender. Anything, it needs to be gender agnostic in terms of whenever
That's true.
you
I
are
believe that.
looking for something, whether you are a particular role, that's a career opportunity, role opportunity. If the role demands it to be in terms of, in any form, it needs to be gender agnostic. I think what is happening by and large is that there is a perception, not a perception, but a reality in many cases about that it is assumed that being a woman, you will not be able to do those roles. And I'm again talking with reference to the corporate world. But let that, so it's not about women's right and saying that give us a chance and we can prove men wrong. It's not men versus women really, as much
Sure.
as being, is that particular role or an opportunity for the, I mean, look at the talent, not the gender.
That's
I
true.
have a request to
Yes,
make
ma'am.
of any corporate person here, while here on the stage or otherwise, is that it all starts so early. I mean, last year I got into this controversy, one more controversy with the IIT Bombay issue, where I don't know if all of you were very busy, but I wrote this open letter finally after being invited for 3 years in a row to go and play their festival. Just to give you an idea, the specific request I have to make of brands and any corporate person sitting out here is, if you do really stand for the idea of equality and equal opportunity, when you are sponsoring even something as simple as a festival in a college campus, And you're not taking note about the fact that for 3 decades in a row, there are no female headliners, be it in music, be it in the literary section, be it in the theater section, be it in the stand-up comedy section. Year after year, you are propagating the myth that the male is supreme, and at best, I'm a decorative add-on, or I can only come a third best. You're propagating that system and that hierarchy right from the very start. So while I'm traveling so much and performing so much, it breaks my heart to tell you that after I wrote that open letter, I used to at least perform in the female colleges, because as I said, women for women is like understandable, because we are going to discuss some very womanly issues. But for a female headliner to go with a band and even perform in a university, and you know, these are big, big festivals, they are always backed by the big brands, but nobody bothers to check that year after year, you have 5 days of performances, and it's always a male headliner. It's always a male headliner. And these are the little, I can only speak from my personal perspective. I'm
Sure.
sure the other professions
Well,
have
my
their own
personal
requests.
perspective is that when I was in Delhi University, I would love to go and see a female performing over any man. It is not even talent, it is love. But coming to Tanishta, we were talking about, yes, Vani.
One rejoinder to the last thread of thought on prettiness, I thought is just something that, for example, in the film industry, it's very, it's sort of normal to say, show me your pretty face. And, being in the film industry as I was for 10 years and also, having come from theatre, I used to always wonder that what is it that it is just
How do you
about
make the pretty face, huh?
Well, I think...
Pretty face.
Well, I have done theatre with you. I think it wasn't just about a pretty face. But I'm just trying to underline a fact that there are some distinctions which have become very sort of solidified. They have become almost insignia of whatever is equated to being a woman or her womanhood. And being a pretty face just happens to be one of those realities which most women are faced with. And I think that is again that distinction which we need to make, whether it is the agender, as Monica said. There's a big movement on right now in the West saying we are agender, and men and women are coming out and saying we are agender. But this distinction of show me your pretty face, which is very normal, it's just, I think that needs to be understood also, in some context.
Let's try to understand it from Tanishta, who's worked in different cultures in the media industry as an actor. And first tell us, what kinds of people have you worked with in terms of nationality and culture? And then if you can go ahead and tell us if there is any difference in this question of being gender agnostic in different cultures.
It's a very long discussion, but
I know some highlights,
I mean, I've worked,
controversial ones.
Yes, I have worked in Europe quite a bit. I've worked in Australia, I've worked in America and in India. I mean, like when you ask the question, we have a lot of powerful women CEOs and politicians and, in positions of power, we have a lot of Indian women. But when it comes to a generic society, we still face biases constantly. And I would completely agree with Vani there that because of a feudal background, we have two sections, very demarcated two sections where some people who come from a very privileged family, which comes from a caste system and, the feudal order, they get all the exposure, so it doesn't matter. Gender really doesn't matter there. But the patriarchy there helps you to reach a particular position. You have a powerful brother or a father who puts you in that position. And if you don't, then it's difficult and the struggles are large. Though I think the narrative is changing. Whereas I think in the West, probably in the more developed countries as we speak, the equality when you just live in society at large, in a middle class society, it's more equal. But those like really high positions, it's tough. We were promoting a film called Parched, which is about women and sexuality. And we had a screening in one of the most gender equal societies and countries of the world in Sweden, in Stockholm. And even in Stockholm, women came to us and said that we identified with these stories, which is about domestic violence, which is about subjugation of desire in women, about how a prostitute deals with age. It's the same narrative. So I think the narrative in that sense doesn't change. Like I was just speaking to Shona, like inside, I was in a panel in Telluride a few years back where we were discussing why Hollywood is so underrepresented as far as women are concerned. And though there are many powerful producers in Hollywood, there are very few directors who are women. And even the powerful producers are unable to bring forward those stories which women want to tell. So there's clearly like a control in terms of, you know, how the narrative would go. And I mean, as an artist and as a person who's a performing artist again, as an actor, what I would like to see, and I agree with Shona there, that we have to create our own stories. We have to say that, okay, if I'm not getting a role like this, then let me write for myself.
Yeah.
And let me
Yeah,
change
but
the
then
narrative like
that's
that.
also unfair because you're not a writer. I mean, you
No,
might be,
I'm not
but many
saying
people
me-
are not.
me
No,
as
but you
Tanishka,
rally around with
I'm
women
not saying me as
or come
Tanishka, but
around
I'm
with
saying
Yeah,
like-minded
but then
people.
that's not the
women
way to
and-
become gender agnostic, I would think.
But we have to start somewhere.
But you have to start
can't
somewhere
remain,
because the thing is that I also very strongly feel that our society at large, you know, the narrative for women will only change through pop culture. Because pop culture is a space where people grow up with those ideas and those images without really underlining or thinking about it.
Well, I agree to that.
And
So
while there's
we-
such
unless
excellent...
we change it through pop culture, and in our country film is such a huge pop culture, we will never see that change. It is not about teaching a guy or a girl that this is how you should behave. It's just telling them effortless stories where you just represent women differently. And,
That's true.
And for that to be written, we as women or as men have to take a very active interest. Even at times when it fails at the box office, we still have to make that change and that be that responsible as a society to make that change in the narrative.
And I think that even as filmmakers, we have to be responsible to make it reach out even more
Yeah.
if you have something to say, to make it even more interesting and entertaining.
Yes, and I think, you know, recently I always give the example of a film called Sairat, which actually made, like, you know, it was a huge success at the box office. It did not underline a feminist story. It was about but the gender reversals were excellent. And it just, you know, it just created characters which were not stereotyping gender. And, you know, the audiences fell in love with those characters. The boy was very much in touch with his feminine side. The woman
And
was-
vice versa.
Yeah, and vice versa. And, you know, the audiences fell in love with these characters. And it wasn't underlined as a feminist film. It was about actually caste politics and honor killing. But, you know, the gender reversals were so beautifully and effortlessly done. And I think in popular cinema, we have to constantly create it without underlining. And so that, you know, audiences just accept it without an effort. And that's how we change the narrative. That's how we change the way people look at women and men.
And now I'm going to ask you, Priyanka, if you can tell us about your personal experiences working in different cultures as an actor. But before that, I'd like to say that very soon we'll come to the audience to ask some questions. And is there somebody who can pass a mic around? Please prepare for that. And come into the center, you stand there so we can decide on who we can go to. Prepare while I ask you for your observations.
Imtiaz, I didn't know what it was going to be, this panel, and because I RSVP'd yesterday, so very innocently I wrote something down, which I think will stream the entire thing and my personal experience as an actor and as a human being and as a woman, and as well as gender, you know, without gender. So, so here goes. Dear all, I thank you from the bottom of my heart to have me here this evening amongst such distinguished people, artists and technicians. I am here before you not as a woman, but as a human being striving for a better future in the field of entertainment, education, and the arts. I'm an actor telling stories, wanting to represent better versions of me through the stories I find, or the ones that find me. I request all of you present here to support this movement of better female representation in our films, female writers, Female writers, producers, directors, and actors are all out here in our country wanting better representation in our films, industry, and home country. I request that when people in power choose, they have the ability and the intellect to choose devoid of gender recognition, but on the basis of merit and diligence, on the basis of truth in the voice and dedication towards a better story told. Women in India have come a long way, but some stories are still unheard and some hands are still not held. We still have a long way to go. I still have a long way to go. There is so much to do. In some countries, I hear they talk about building a wall. Let's not make invisible walls around us. May we truly nourish potential devoid of gender. As an individual growing in this country, I grew angry for the way I was treated on many circumstances. Some of those stories were so raw that it will take me a little more than this life to heal. I'm grateful to the arts to provide opportunities along the way to express myself and find forgiveness. I'm still searching, living, and growing. I envision a better future for women in film, women in life, where there will be no barriers to break, but only personal human revolutions and breaking their own barriers of fear. It's 2017, for God's sake. I leave you guys with a quote by Dorothy L. Sayers. In fact, there is perhaps only one human being in 1,000 who is passionately interested in his job for the job's sake. The difference is that one person in 1,000 is a man. We say simply that he's passionately keen on his job. If she is a woman, we say she's a freak. You've got to love her for that. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we are getting ready for audience questions. How are we doing on time? Is somebody going to tell me? Because we can, 10 minutes. Okay. So we've got 10 minutes. We'll stretch it to a little bit more because I think that we are completely underutilizing the panel. Who's going to ask an interesting question? And a question, please. If you have an observation, save it for later. Just a question, point it out. Please say your name. Yes.
Sandeep from Afternoon here. Priyanka ma'am, what do you feel about the recent trend of woman-centric films and films made by lady directors and producers?
Priyanka is here.
I'm Priyanka.
I'm Richa, sir.
Who are you asking? Don't worry.
Yeah, may I hear the question again, please?
What do you think of the recent trend of woman-centric films and films made by female ladies and producers and directors?
First of all, why is it a trend? You know, this whole, the idea of trending, makes me figure it out like
Makes
a
it superficial.
hashtag. I mean, why is it a trend? I mean, it's a normal thing. It's a female director. I mean, she's a director. She's an actress. She's a producer. Female director, this award goes to female director. It doesn't make sense to me. So this trend you talk about, I mean, this is why we're here. We want to do better films. We want to do better roles, and as female artists, let's not.
Priyanka, I've got to ask you, Tanishta and Richa, this question. Referring to you as actress, what does that do? Do you like it, hate it, you don't mind it? What's going on with actor and actress?
No,
Like nobody will say
I
Sona
normally-
is a singress.
no,
But is it
yes.
songress?
There is a songress.
But I used to mind it because somebody said it's derived from actor. But I said, hey, maybe the actor is derived from the actress.
Could
so
be.
now I don't mind it. And I say whatever I feel like, irrespective of gender. It's irrelevant.
Is your, Tanishta, your attitude about that one like my attitude towards Bollywood and Hollywood?
What is your attitude towards Bollywood? I don't know that.
Well, I
Tell
hate
me.
to say the word because I feel it's a kind of a
Derived.
cheap imitation of
derived.
something,
Yeah.
but then it's just easier to say it sometimes, so I'm
It is
confused.
derived. I would prefer to call it like, Indian cinema. And because
Hindi
No, no,
film
no, we are not
industry.
talking about that. We are
Then-
talking about actor
Then
and
derivative.
actress.
actor and actress, I don't care. It's a chicken and egg situation.
So you're
I don't
gender
know-
agnostic as far as
I
that's
don't
concerned.
know. Yeah, I don't know where it came from. Maybe the actress came first, so I don't really
I
care.
was talking to my dad about it. My mom is she teaches in the university. And when I said, this actress, and he was like, I used to teach in the university and they used to call me teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But Ajit, are you careful about that being a man? Because I'm sure that you meet a lot of
The
female
biggest
actors.
the biggest majority of the panel, you're asking exactly the right question to.
I'm being most careful here, being on this panel itself, you know.
Yeah.
So
I'm still far away. I can run.
no, see, I think let's just try to make some sense of this larger discussion here. I think we've heard, you know, some points which point to the pain that has been associated with being a woman, the challenges and so on and so forth. I think that's a fact. There is no denying that a woman has to, you know, has to work that much harder and has to sort of cross greater hurdles. And I don't think there is any, you know, any debate there. And that's very simply because, you know, we are a 5,000-year-old society, which is, you know, come from the whole idea of Manusmriti and all of that, you know. So we are carrying a humongous baggage of being a very male-dominated society. That to me is the old story. What excites me is that this story is actually changing very rapidly, you know. And if you see what is happening around in society at large, is this ceiling that we are talking about is repeatedly getting broken, and getting broken in very traditional countries like even India, you know. I mean, look at sports, and whereas the most harvest of medals come from, it's come from women. And it's not come because anybody, you know, asked something or anything was given to them or there was a reservation, all of that. They have earned it completely. If you look at corporates, clearly the progressive, forward-looking corporates are making interventions to actually get more women on the board. But again, to me, these things are small and incremental. The most exciting thing is how cinema is changing, because, you know, if there is one power which can change societal attitudes at large, it's something like cinema. And if you see the kind of films that are winning people today, that gives me a lot of hope, and that gives me a lot of you know, sense of how these things will change maybe much faster than what we imagine them to be, you know. There is a A-list film, I won't be able to name it, and somebody would not believe this, but the lead actress in that A-list top-tier film has been paid much higher than the actor. This is something that...
In your company?
No, it's in the industry, and I'm going to qualify that. To me, that's the highlight.
That's awesome.
If this has happened, that's already awesome, right? And if the films are able to weave such stories which are making impact, I think the societal attitudes will get fashioned, will get changed, and that is really what gives me, you know, a great hope. And that to me is really the exciting part of this discussion. So I think we should move it there and see as to how this change can be accelerated, and accelerated not perhaps by pushing it, but more organically by possibly being more agender, and by doing things, you know, that are required to be done, rather than, you know, taking this up as a cause and doing it for the sake of it.
Geraldine, I'm sorry to cut you, Ajit, but just to bring you in at this point of time and ask, is there some bullet remark you can make? How do we push this forward in our country? What are we doing wrong, what we can very easily set right?
So it has interest, your comment about media, and I think media is so extraordinarily important, whether we're talking about the United States or here. Yeah. So I think about whatever, some of the films and television programs. So television, soap, opera, serials really are not moving ahead. Progressive. So I heard this when I heard this comment about women-centric films. So I thought,
they are not moving ahead in terms of the subject matter, but very popular and very highly paid actors are female.
But perhaps in terms of advancing women's social roles, perhaps they're
in terms of the characters they're creating,
the characters.
But isn't it a paradox that you have what you call not a very liberated view at women in television serials, but the ones who are famous, the actors are female, and those are the ones.
But they're portraying. The propaganda is these are consumed by women, made by women, and also produced by.
Is that a bad thing?
And it's very regressive. No, it's not a bad thing. But the regression, and that's why when I was trying.
So these women are very male chauvinistic.
Yeah, you know, that's why I was speaking about the shared collaboration. That this bastion is very regressive right now. This space is very regressive right now. And the funny part is, in terms of content, films have taken a big. I mean, I can understand why that gentleman said the word trend, because the propaganda used to be that women protagonist cinema is commercially unviable. That has gotten broken, you know, in recent times. And
That's
that
true.
is the progression that you see, and yet television and content is getting increasingly regressive. And we should be very worried about it as you know, as society right
The
now.
penetration is so much higher. It's going into every home, and even women watching them is dangerous because it's creating a sort of stereotype in everybody's mind.
Yes, Richa.
It's a little more complicated than that. It's a little more complicated than just regressive attitudes at play. There is a huge English, Hindi or English and Tamil, Telugu, Gujarati divide. The serials that are made for the national viewing have a certain format. And then literally you see versions of them in any other regional language. You and I will not watch Nagin on TV. We'll watch Amazon Prime or we'll watch Netflix. But this is the divide between, say, my grandmother who watches these shows, my mother who will probably watch Zindagi channel, some nice, literally Pakistani or Turkish dramas now, and me. So I think it's more of a class and language thing. However, I completely agree. It is a very, very dangerous thing because like some 10 years ago in Gwalior or Indore, a kind of school propped up to educate women how to be ideal bahus, and then they had these posters of famous TV actresses, all of whom I know personally, who wear shorts and bikinis and take lovely holidays with their boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever. And it taught a woman that the woman could go there and learn how to be the ideal wife. And we've all grown up on this, or like all this Bhabhi tum khushiyon ka khazana, Pehli Kiran, and or ads. Ooh, ouch. सुबह से शाम तक 8 बजे नाश्ता, 10 बजे something, 11 बजे ये, 12 बजे
song?
बच्चे.
Is that a song? Wow.
No,
This
but
is
right
an
now,
ad
even in
for,
advertising,
It's an ad. Okay,
even for
okay.
Father's
ad
Day, right now in advertising, the current trend is women's liberation right now seems to be everybody's dharohar. Because in advertising, Father's Day maybe you have to show the fact that it's all very...
Yes.
Yeah, Imtiaz, one question.
Yes, sir.
Richa and Tanishta specifically, you have been part of some path-breaking cinema in the past. Do you think today on this platform, there are still some stories, untold stories, which needs to be told, and you need to be part of it as such?
Sir, how we'll tell all stories in 40 minutes?
No, not 40 minutes. Maybe there are some strong subjects here you feel could make a difference when we are talking about women at large. See, we are talking about breaking the glass ceiling, but practically everyone is staying in
there are ample number of stories that need to be told, and there are those stories. I've recently finished a film which is a period piece, which is the life of the first practicing woman doctor of India. And when I did her biography, actually today, as Ajit is saying, you know, if I'm talking about positivity, when I look at her life, who was born in 1864 and she lived till 1955, and the kind of struggles that she went through to become the first practicing female doctor of India, to the life that I have, I think, yes, we have made progress.
I would love to see a Gauhar Jan. I don't know if anybody has heard of Gauhar Jan. We have, but well, she was the first recording artist of India. She was a superstar. तब तो billboards और वो TV नहीं होता था. But on the Matchbox के cover में उनका मुंह रहता था, and she was like a queen in her own day. But I just need to connect the dots here and tell you that at the turn of the century, you had a Gauhar Jan who was a female superstar. But yet she was not accorded, even till now, a female ustad. There is no equivalent of an ustad or a pandit when it comes to a female performing artist who has reached that level.
Well, that's
वो
true.
कोठे में रहती थी, and the men occupied the concert stages. So for me, Gauhar Jan and her ilk were the first empowered women of our country, because they were the first women who could earn a living and have money in their pocket that was their own and not a brother's or a father's or a husband's. They were the first ones to own property, not in their name. They were not even allowed to own property in their own name. So it was in a brother's name or in somebody else's name. But they were the first ones to pay property taxes. So the lineage of the artist, so to say, without the dignity accorded, or this ustad and pandit thing that I've been screaming about for a long time, I mean, in today's day and age, we still do not have an equivalent of an ustad and pandit. It's something to worry about. So the story of a Gauhar Jan and her life, I would say would make for a very interesting film.
So there you are, many
If you're
stories
making one
that
Imtiaz,
answers
I'll
your
sing for
question.
it. Huh? I don't get
Sorry,
to
are you
sing
saying
much.
something? Have I interrupted?
Yeah, I said if you make one like that, I'll sing for it. I have a good voice.
Yeah?
Richa,
Okay.
Richa had something to say.
Let's talk about
Imtiaz,
that.
I did a pitch
Yes.
also.
Yeah,
Hold on, just
I have a question for Richa and Tanishta.
hold on. Can you stand up wherever you are? Yes.
I am Jyoti Venkatesh here, journalist. Question to Richa as well as Tanishta. Both of you are good actresses who acted in different kind of films or different genres. But can you tell me frankly, as actresses, whether it is different and difficult to act with a female director or with a male director? Because sensitivity is something different and mindset
That's a
also
yeah. That's a
different.
good question. I'd like an answer as well. Is it different?
Working with the...
Please tell us the lie.
My mic
Trick
is
question.
not working.
You got your answer.
Oh, I thought it's a conspiracy. Sir, hello. Jyoti Venkatesh sir. Hi, how are you? Sir, one of my third big job in life was to work with a director called Meera Nair. It was just a short film, not released yet. And I observed how she walked into the set and how she commanded respect without ever raising her voice. And it was like a bustling crew which would often fall silent, but not out of fear, but out of respect. And she would be able to achieve whatever she wanted. And that taught me that I had been conditioned to believe that in order to get ahead, a woman has to be a bitch. You understand? And that, I'm really glad I broke that concept immediately because I saw, okay, this woman is my director. She could also be my friend. She could also be maternal towards me. And I learned so much from that. So I think it's fun to work with a good director, irrespective of gender.
And Tanishta?
Sorry, I have the last question.
Tanishta, you are not replied.
Yeah, I would completely agree with Richa.
Tanishta, you are not replied.
What I
Yeah, she's replying if you let
That's
her.
what I'm replying, that I would completely agree with Richa. I've worked with both female and male directors, and I think it's very individual. It's not gender specific at all. You can have a very insensitive female director and a very sensitive male director, and vice versa.
Geraldine,
it's not
do
gender
you want to
specific.
say something to that?
Yes, this reminds me, just listening to the questions, of what often happens for us as professors, that even if we're talking about women's history or we're talking about women's subjects, that the questions are all dominated by men. And I keep wondering whether it's something that men can't resist, sort of stepping forward and being first. And there hasn't been, at least from my perspective, a question yet from a woman in the audience.
But there just have been, they've just been.
आई है. She wanted to ask a question, but her mic was passed on to him. Is this true?
All right, so we'll take your question, ma'am. I'll come back to you. Thanks for the gesture. Yes, ma'am.
It's really fascinating listening to this. So I'm coming from Canada, where as somebody who'd never done a film before last year, I too didn't think I was a writer, but we have organizations that support women in film. So my question here is, are there such organizations in India that support women in film? And because mentorship is a huge part of it. Is if you can find mentors within your field, they help each other. And I think that's how I've seen women get ahead, at least in North America.
I think
there's a new one of cinematographers,
There's a
DOPs
women
that
in
have come
film.
together to make a collective just last week, and they plan to
And there's a
do
pre-existing
exactly.
one called Women in Film and Television.
WIF,
Yeah.
it's a worldwide organization. It's the same thing.
But you can call any of us.
Yes.
I offer women in the audience that maybe want to make a film, right? Yes. To reach out to. So that was an organization that helped me in my country. But I wonder, why doesn't it work that way in India?
Now you're here, you'll make it work.
Yes.
And sir, thanks for the very good gesture. Your question is the last one.
How do you visualize the face of women in films 5 years from now?
Who is this to? Tanishta.
Like I said, that I would want like the change through pop culture.
We've actually gone backwards on this. Sorry to cut you. But we had actresses like Madhubala, Nargis, Nutan, Meena Kumari and me, who could carry a film on their shoulders. They were there. Whether it was as early as Bandhani or Achut Kanya or Mother India, there were women who were strong and who were very, very loved. I don't think that, I don't see that kind of stardom even. It's a much quicker FMCG category, I'm told, the Indian heroine.
I just want to add one last thing, because it always comes down to films, and that seems to be the center point. But we've been having a very, very interesting phase in the last 2 weeks, where I think it starts with the acknowledgement that women's issues seem to be at a flashpoint when it comes to the media. So be it the TVF Aruna Kumar controversy and sexual harassment being discussed as a debate, or be it, I've been wondering why Alia, who is such an immensely talented, brilliant and amazing actress, with a family to tell her and give her guidance, because she is within the industry, would do a Badrinath Ki Dulhania and putting it out there with the names. Or cut to, I'm just saying, let's just connect the dots, a Gurmehar Kaur who got trolled, because I regularly get trolled, because we can't miss out the fact that while the media seems to pick up on all these women issues and they put out all these open letters, when you look at the comment section, you will realize how little things have changed when it comes to the larger masses and numbers, because the haters can really mess with you in terms of putting you in your place when you come from this gender. So the point I'm trying to make here is, and Gurmehar Kaur, because it's a political event, we are living in a very polarized world, so everything seems to go either this way or that way. Interestingly, I noticed that ultimately what came down to how Barkha Dutt was actually teaching her to do all this. So it's very easy to pick up these demons and to demonize, I believe, this gender, specifically now when I'm talking about the internet. It's not something we should miss out on, because it plays a very critical role in how we are shaping a whole generation. If you notice, most young girls from colleges who follow me, they all have private profiles. They are scared to even publicly be there. So while we like to think that things are changing in the urban space and all, I think it's maybe a topic for another day, where our open spaces being safer. And when you are talking media and entertainment, we cannot forget that the internet and the social media really plays a very, very critical space. So if I'm getting rape threats on Twitter, if there's somebody watching out there and who's from Twitter, should know that those accounts should be just shut down, period. And no coming back after 2 weeks. So
yes, Monica. Yes. Just the last minute. Yes.
Yeah, just to sum it up, I think the entire media and creative communication industry, whether it's advertising, television or films, can play a huge role in actually addressing all the questions which were raised today, is representing women very subliminally in roles which are not make a big deal about it that I did this, and it should become a very natural progression in our society. Only will the actual grassroots change will happen.
So there we are at the end of this wonderful session. Too many of us, and I hope there is something that threw up which you'll take home. Thank you very much to each one of you for being here.
but rather put it on digital and not worry about broadcasting.
Not at all, and even
not worry about the P&A.
Not even worry about the theatrical in case.
So Tiska, that opens up a lot of opportunity for you as an actress.
Yeah, certainly.
And
that is always welcome. What I notice from a lot of films that I've done, one burns one's heart and soul in making a film, and then because the distribution or the P&A is not good enough, or it's an indie sort of film or a niche sort of thing, then it becomes extremely difficult to send that film out into the larger world. With the advent of digital stuff, it's become so much easier to be able to directly access your audience, and if it's good, then word of mouth sends the film into another orbit. As in the case of Chutney, it's at 47.5 or something million views. So we spent 0 rupees on advertising it, nothing at all. So yeah, I think it's just absolutely fabulous, both for the audiences and for the makers, because the audiences also don't want a overly marketed film which is pushed down their throats every single day. And the makers, of course, want to not spend additional money on top of the product. I'd rather spend on making a very good film than on just pushing it out there. So I think it's a win-win.
Raghav?
Yes, sir.
How about you? What are the differences that you've seen? You know, you were a struggling actor, then moved into the...
That's right.
Has that got anything to do with the social media presence?
Actually, no, the money was really good. There wasn't anything else to it. Telugu is a very cash-rich business. I do think the cinema is rather formulaic, but yeah, you know, you need to...
But did you get any international offers based on your social media presence?
No, I think largely it was based on what people perceive to be talent, but not really on the basis of social media presence. No.
Okay. So you're good to stay in a regional space, Vivek, and you think that it is going to, the alternative content also that you're creating.
So that's another thing that you can keep in mind. You can't rely on syndication, of course, because it depends on the appeal of your content. And if you make something that flops, no one's going to pay for it. For film promotions, using YouTube as a film promotion platform, so a lot of people would pay for that. On top of that, there's selling rights to your content, say music rights. If you have a web series and you have some original music in that, you can release it on Apple Music Store and these kind of things. So there's a lot of ways that you can earn money from your content apart from YouTube advertising. So it's important to keep it in mind.
I don't think you imagine the success that Chutney would get.
No.
Was it because of the internet penetration?
Absolutely, it's on YouTube, free for anyone to view, and no clue. Absolutely none. I think we were just very focused on making this story. I think also what's interesting about a platform like YouTube and the digital space is that everyone can find their own kind of content. You know, it doesn't have to be that one big blockbuster film. There's micro content, so a short film is like a bikini. Because it is so short, it has to be so precise. So I think it's precisely to the people who like it, they will watch it. And if you don't like it, you won't get the number of views that you want. And that is the magic of it, that you can reach your target audience, your TG, very, very precisely. I like that part about the digital platform very much.
Over to you, Paula. What do you see? The difference between the emergence of premium platforms or localized content, right? Mm-hmm. And Vivek, guys like Vivek are going to create more and more alternative content. Guys like Raghav is going to create more and more content. Raghav, of course, is a multi-talented guy. I mean, do you see it is important to have multi-skill sets to be successful on digital?
Yes, it is important.
Commercial, Bollywood, you've done television, you're doing digital content now. Did you ever feel that you didn't have the creative accomplishment or as a talent that you are aspiring to see that when the digital has emerged? For example, your Chutney is a good example. Does it give you more appetite to go and create such content?
I'm not
All
sure.
the dreams that you had, all the dreams that you had, that you would have wanted to create, act in a certain character, you would have missed out those opportunities. Do you see digital giving that opportunity to really live those dreams out there?
Yes, absolutely. I think this piece that I used to perform 15, 18 years back, Chutney, I used to perform it as a monologue at the Platform Theatre in Prithvi. When I was starting out, we were not even given slots inside Prithvi. And we wrote it then and as a short film and put it on YouTube, and it did well. So yes, I do see that. I think largely what works on the internet, from whatever little I understand, is there has to be a great deal of passion behind what you do. That will find resonance and its own sort of audience. So certainly it is, you can create content that you've always aspired to, and if it doesn't work for whatever reason, it's not like a year and a half gone into the production and that kind of many crores gone into the making of a feature film. So it's easier off the shelf. And you, as Paula mentioned, that it's extremely gratifying for a performer, because you know immediately and instantaneously. And also the whole system of films is where there's a whole lot of hogwash. When a film comes out, you hear 100 crores, 200 crores, 500 crores, etc. You don't know how much of that is true, not true, how many of those numbers are fudged. No one really knows the back end of films, the distribution end. Whereas YouTube is extremely transparent. You know, you see a clear scenario of how your views are going, what times your film is viewed at maximum, what is the demographic of the people. The algorithms tell you a lot of details, which is very interesting. So I like that whole idea of knowing exactly who your audience is and what they liked, and there are the whole comment section will tell you what they liked, what they didn't like. So it's almost like having a private interface with your audience, which for a performer, it's as close to theatre as possible, except in a theatre you can seat a maximum of, the largest audience I've ever performed to is 2,000 people at Stanford. Beyond that, I've not performed to a bigger audience than that. So I think YouTube in that sense has a quality of theatricality to it, to performing to a live audience in a way that it's very direct, very quick, very immediate, and very transparent. So that's the beauty of it.
No, I agree with you, but these days I see a lot of creators fudging the views there also, because they push a lot of advertising there. To have those,
sure. I'm quite unaware of all of that, because we're quite new in that sense. But I've heard of that too, that you buy views, etc.
It's not buying actually. They push the ads to reach to the X amount of views. That also helps the video to go to a trending mode, suggestive, then goes into the trending mode. So, but having said that, digital as such can help you even stop fudging those numbers at the theaters. That's the good news. And if you look at the success that Marathi cinema like Sairat has seen, you wouldn't have seen those numbers 5 years ago. It's the transparency that's come into the system by the internet penetration and stuff like that. Vivek, as a maker, I was just wondering, do you have any suggestions for alternative content makers? Do you have any suggestions for alternative creators?
Well,
alternative cinema creators.
For alternative creative, for alternate content, for the originals, I would just try to say that keep making up the good stuff, live up to the expectations, and match the standards that the Netflixes and the Amazons. Of course, you need the money, and no Indian platform gives that sort of money, but I'm sure times are here to change. In terms of filmmakers, I would only advise them to concentrate on their content, keep the budgets very rational, start editing the screenplay so that you waste very little resources, and use all that is available to us, right from the script labs to the film festivals to all platforms, so that you create.
I guess one thing that I wanted to point out is
Chutney was, am I audible? Yeah. Am I audible? Can you hear me? I get the feeling that, yeah, now. Chutney was one of the most amazing experiences because purely because it was very virgin territory as far as I was concerned. I had never, I was personally pushing a lot of boundaries because I hadn't ever written. I'd written a book, but nothing, nothing in fiction. So that was amazing. I never produced and not done such a tough role, which was physically so transformative. So in 3 or 4 ways, it was extremely challenging for me. It was a very stretching period. It's very gratifying to know that it has done so well and reached so far. And as far as more stuff on the web, whether it's, there's one script which we have ready for a web series. There's 2 short films which are ready, and there's a feature that I'm working on, but not for the web, that's a regular feature film. So yes, it's been very encouraging, and I'm writing quite a lot at the moment. I've worked with one, it wasn't really, was it in Independent? Highway was independent? Yeah, okay, so I don't know the difference between what is independent Marathi and mainstream Marathi. I thought Girish and Umesh Kulkarni were fairly mainstream, right?
Yeah, in terms of actors, they're mainstream. It just meant the kind of production. It wasn't a studio film, right?
Yeah, it wasn't a studio film. Yeah, okay. So it was really, really great because also they had a lot of people from FTII. Sudhakar Reddy, who was our DOP, who also then went and shot Sairat, had invented these beautiful lights which they used inside the car because the whole journey of Highway was inside we shot inside vehicles. So they devised a lot of interesting ways to do sound and camera and lights. That was wonderful. And they're really, really bright guys, and I really enjoyed working with them.
You want to answer? So, well...
Sorry, मैं आपका सवाल नहीं समझी. मतलब झूठ कैसे हो सकता है? I'm not sure I understand.
Is that a question to her? Can I answer that? Yes, those views are true. They are not fake. Trust me. The point is whether it's a pull or a push. Did somebody look for the video or somebody pushed the video at you? That's all.
I have a question for Vivek.
Take your video off. Yes. So being evolved in that on that platform, we being an MCN, yes, there are a lot of mischief that goes on the platform, and they keep on innovating.
So to that, content is always in danger of either being pirated or people, sort of subverting it here and there and doing different kinds of things. I think not to get distracted by that kind of thing and just really make good stuff that you believe in, and it will lead to organic views and organically things doing well. And then one should not worry too much about, of course there'll always be a cheater in class. वो तो हमेशा ही होगा. तो बेटर है कि आप अपनी पढ़ाई करके अच्छे से जाएं, अपना काम करें, एंड होपफुली इट विल डू वेल. तो ज़्यादा ना सोचें कि इधर उधर क्या हो रहा है.
Hello, I have a question for Vivek. Vivek, can you please comment on Marathi feature theatrical distribution? because most of the Marathi filmmakers, they themselves have to distribute their films. And you must be aware how it happens in the rural center, how filmmakers get cheated by the exhibitors, that number of seats.
Practice for Lokmat. So over the last 21, 22 years, I've been involved in digital media and mobile entertainment space. So I've come across, this is a very unique case across various formats. So at one end of the ecosystem, we have talent. So each one of you on the stage today is a talent. Someone
would you like
is
to stand
writing.
up? We can't see you.
Oh, sorry. So someone is writing, someone is acting. So each one of you are a part of a creative talent industry, right? And on the other hand, you have large aggregators and distribution partners. So each of you, so for example, you are engaged in the process of creating excellent content. And on the other hand, you have distributors who have the ability to upscale your content from a consumption perspective and make money for you. I've always seen that there is a divide which still exists between you and the ability to scale up the business in terms of making it more sensible from a monetizing perspective. So as you scale up from, say, a movie which did 44 million views without you really having too much of understanding, say, for example, of digital, but purely on the merit of content. But as you go into making more web series, etc., how do you see bridging this divide between creative talent and distribution and monetization?
It's a good question. I'm not sure that I have the answer because I would have done it by now, had I known. But we're exploring. Some of the people on this panel are already succeeding in doing that. We're in the process of setting up our own platform. My company is called The Eastern Way, and we're looking at branded content. The conundrum still is how do we reach advertising agencies, do we reach brands individually, how do we do that? And that has been something I've been trying to do for the past 2 odd months, trying to reach out to people and see. There have been queries from some brands who've asked us if we would make something for them which would reach 47 million, and of course the answer was, I really can't promise you any numbers as such, because how can you do that? We could promise you a really good film that you might enjoy watching, but beyond that one can't really say. So yes, I can't really answer that question entirely. I answered it because I thought you were looking at me, but perhaps those two people over there and this fine gentleman here might be better equipped to answer that in terms of how it can be monetized, and Whacked Out Media is also monetizing it beautifully. I think keeping costs low is one. Beyond that, Paula.
Yeah, Ram, of course, you would be able to answer this because you are, you're putting out 800 videos a day, right? So
yeah, so
YouTube isn't just going to give you money. You have to sign up for monetization. Yeah. Huh. So maybe I'll explain then how the YouTube advertising works.